Say hello to my guest, Josh Makower, LSI 2023. Josh, it is fantastic to see you.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
So here we are at day 3 of LSI. I think this is your first time at the conference?
It is my first time.
A lot of the themes that we're hearing this year is, medical device, and then software, and then data, and then this sort of virtuous circle coming back. Certainly a theme you're no stranger to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the world is already very digital, and it's just going to get more.
So let's talk about biodesign. So a little bit of a change coming out of COVID. So Paul has stepped back, and now you're leading the charge. How's that been?
It's been awesome. It's been great. I mean, Paul and I co-founded Biodesign over 20 years ago, and so I've known all the people. I've been a part of training all the fellows who represent a large percentage of our faculty now. And so it's a little bit like coming home. I mean, everyone who is involved in biodesign really just cares about others and trying to make the world better for patients and physicians. And so it's a true pleasure, really.
But I think it's that knowing that millions of people you'll never meet, their lives are better.
It's awesome. Today our fellows, just the fellows alone, over the last 20 years have created 56 companies. And those companies have touched well over 7 million lives with products, real products. So it's really just an amazing example of what you can do when you focus. Many of these folks have never invented anything before. And that's really the vision for biodesign, is really to train the next generation of innovators, give them tools to be more successful, and hopefully they go out and really change lives.
For me, I'm an early stage, front end kind of guy, and a lot of us are. That's just where we are. And I think biodesign for me helped me realize that there's a systematic approach. It's very much, I didn't know anything about, innovation or entrepreneurship. Peter Drucker, I stumbled onto him and then sort of suddenly realized, that's the genius of biodesign.
Thanks.
It's systematized. It's a very complex industry, but it doesn't need to be complicated.
Right, exactly. That's I think the reason why it's such a great tool is it's taken something that is somewhat magical or mystical or unreachable, unapproachable, and breaks it down into every simple step that if you just follow the steps, you will find your journey through. It's like a map to the process. And so it takes the fear out, and I think it encourages more people to take that step, because the first step, it looks doable, and the second step after that is doable. And it's just, if you follow it, you will emerge the other side, and you're an innovator.
I think the other part of it is, because I see before the pandemic, traveling more, but when I get back on the road, I'm always so encouraged. I think of them as ambassadors of innovation.
Yeah.
Fellows are now all over the country.
You are so right. I'm so proud of them. I see them here in the conference, and they're playing all sorts of interesting roles. Some are VCs, obviously some have companies, and some are working in big companies, and many of them do come back and they help train and coach and advise, and they're on panels, and so it's just this virtuous cycle. It's been great to be a part of it, and I'm really thrilled to be back at Biodesign, sort of charting what's next.
What is going to be next for Biodesign?
Obviously core is keep all the good things that we've been doing good, and just continue to measure our success, and don't sit on our laurels, but continue to do what we've been doing well. But there are 3 new areas that we'll be focusing on for the future. One is an area that I call Biodesign All Life Sciences. Today, in a world where we can have a vaccine for a pandemic designed over a weekend, I think the tools are now here to say, yes, you can design a molecule for a specific purpose. We have the modeling, we have the technology. So it really is now possible to do the need finding step, identify what the molecular mechanisms are behind that disease state, look at what's been explored and not, and also understand all the patient needs, the doctor needs, the healthcare needs, the cost needs, et cetera, and take that all into the design process when thinking about a molecule. And so we want to broaden the ability for our fellows and trainees to think of the full range of tools that they could use to invent with and innovate with. And that's what we're doing. So we're bringing that expertise. We're revisiting the process to make sure there aren't any embedded biases that would lead people to physical things, and giving them the full scope of the palette. And we're already seeing it in this year's fellowship. At least 3 of the 4 fellowship teams have pretty viable biotech or pharma ideas that are very novel and very exciting. So I think this is the beginning of a real transformation, and I think that will spread to our affiliates across the world. The second big sort of innovation is to create a policy program. And this is to take on the role of training the next generation of policymakers in health technology oversight. That would be, in FDA or CMS, but also as lead staffers in Congress or even the White House. And I'd love to see, a graduate of ours be commissioner of the FDA someday. But imagine it, someone trained in innovation, understanding the nuances, the difficulty, the challenges of actually bringing new therapies forward for patients, sitting in that role and making decisions about how best to balance all of the things that one needs to consider. Obviously, at the top of the list is patient safety, but also in the effort of achieving safe outcomes for patients, realizing that the way it is today is not good. How do we allow innovation to thrive, to solve some of those problems and advance, the state of being a human here and extend, the valuable and positive quality of life. So I think that's the mission there, and we're starting with our first 4 fellows this summer, and this is a program that will continue to grow. And I really look forward to seeing our fellows, just like we see them in the halls here, in the halls of the Capitol building and in the White House and the FDA. And then the third new initiative, and this is really the last one, which is to reimagine how we use the process to partner globally. Historically, Biodesign's been approached by governments across the world, universities across the world, saying, hey, how do we inject Biodesign into our university systems? How do we bring it to our country? How do we use Biodesign to help jumpstart the economy around health tech, et cetera? And we've worked with governments like Singapore, Japan, Israel, to help those things happen. Ireland, and those have been tremendously successful. And I've just been blown away, actually, at how successful it is, not only as an educational tool, but they're really using it as an economic tool to create jobs, create startups, create an investment climate, to bring in, corporate investors and big business, and it's working. But interestingly, one of the governments that approached us, which was India, about 15 years ago, we had worked with the government of India to help install Biodesign there. And what we've seen is really in areas where there's a tremendous amount of poverty and human need and a lot of underserved population, how even in that setting, Biodesign can really transform the environment, creating jobs, creating new ideas that bring investors in, that generate success and further jobs, healthcare, bigger companies coming in to acquire those small companies, in this whole ecosystem over 15 years that we've seen evolve in India. And so when I started in about 1.5 years ago, I realized, we are facing a crisis in global health and of health equity, even here in the United States. And could we use Biodesign as a tool to really address this issue? And that's what we're doing. So we intend, instead of being approached by well-heeled governments, we're still obviously going to support our partners. And today there are over 80 programs across the world that are using our textbook or are even being taught by our trainees. And so we've had that impact, but many of them are in really, economies that are quite well off. Where can we go that we can actually make a difference and bring people up and identify people who are the most in need and the most underserved? And so we did a scan of the globe, and we've decided to do one here in the United States and one globally. And the one globally that's already gotten a great kickstart is our program in East Africa. We're partnering with the University of Global Health Equity, which is based in Rwanda, and also Kenyatta University, basically to service the entire East African region, which is about 500 million people. And the mission will be to train the faculty from those universities on biodesign, and then have them, and then, over the next several years, train several faculty, help them set up their fellowship and graduate classes to train innovators in situ who are going to focus on that population and invent and create solutions that we hope will inspire the same sort of ecosystem that we see that has evolved in India. And so that's the third initiative, which I call Biodesign Mission-Driven Global Health Equity.
So I'm wondering, on that first one, is Michael Ackerman
Absolutely
in the house?
He is. He's back in the house. And those that don't know Michael, he's a serially successful entrepreneur. But what's interesting about Michael, he's one of our fellows. He was one of the first ones to figure out that the biodesign process could be used to create biotech companies. And he's got, at least 2 publicly traded companies that were initiated with this process, and they've been tremendously successful. So it's really rewarding to see that. And so, he was making a transition between one and the next new company, and it was just perfect timing. And I asked Michael whether he would be willing to come back and lead this program. And, and he is. So he is the director of biotech for Biodesign, has created the new curriculum, which the fellows this last year went through, and now building it to expand to our graduate and faculty curriculum, and doing a great job. And he's an amazing guy, and we're so lucky to have him back.
I think about your number 2, the policy change and all that. When I look at the diversity of career paths, because I think back, I've seen fellows now for many years and kept up with them, and that's probably not going to be a heavy lift. That seems like that's just one more radius that they can spin off on.
Yeah, although we are recruiting this as a separate fellowship entirely. The backgrounds and motivations are very different for this group of fellows. So this is a very special fellowship. The people who are coming into this fellowship don't intend to be innovators. They actually have a desire to change healthcare and make it more conducive to innovation. So many of them have Masters of Public Health degrees. Some of them have actually had, already served in one or more sort of roles in either sort of a political or agency type role, and they're really looking to sort of advance their careers to be leaders in policy and healthcare.
Well, tell us a little bit more about that, Josh, because I'm, definitely, even in the way that I asked you about that. So, what's that archetype look like for that second track for policy? Who are you looking for?
Yeah, so it maps. Thanks for asking, because we'll be recruiting for our next group of fellows just coming up in a couple of months. We're really looking for people all over the map. However, if you have an advanced science degree, that helps. If you've already have an interest in policy or gotten involved, maybe served in a campaign or took an internship at the FDA or worked as a page or other role as a staffer in the White House or Congress. Those are all things that kind of show this is a direction that is for you. You could have an MD science degree or none, actually, as long as you understand and have a passion about healthcare. One of the folks is a nurse, one is a PhD, one's a physician, and one is really just an innovator who has spent her career working on policy issues in the government and just wants that next step up, like many of our other fellows do. They want to just get an acceleration in their career to actually make an impact.
One of the things that I explore on a matter of innovation, and when I look at, entrepreneurship and counseling in that area, is the sort of the back end, which, and even at like your house, you have that great party when you bring all the strategics in and make the fellows teach, which is always a lot of fun. I just started asking people, introduce me to a payer. Show me a payer. And there's a real disconnect. And some of the most connected, diverse, friendly people are within that sort of biodesign community. And now I started to look at modes of innovation that are literally, look what's happening just in clinical trial. Look at delivery. People are focused completely on payment. So, your insight into policy, all of these need to be more receptive. I feel like we need to help the health system sort of take a breath and reduce some costs so we can have, fill it with higher value and this next generation.
Exactly. Yeah, no, this whole wave of announcing that we care about policy and we want to play a role has actually brought even Blue Cross Blue Shield forward. And they are engaged with us. We were able to get access to some of their executives to come in and teach. And so it's a building relationship. And I think those types of opportunities to just get into the discussion and share points of view will, I think, bring some mutual enlightenment and hopefully some solutions that work for both, innovators as well as regulators and, payers.
Well, I look forward to seeing more of biodesign's contribution as we sort of bring up this next level. I mean, imagine that we get entrepreneurs and innovators that have been in community and then rise into leadership. And it's like, you know what? I know some people over there. Instead of this, well, who is that guy?
Yeah, one of the big advantages of a program like this is you can bring thought leaders in. I mean, like yourself for intellectual property and other areas, and that just gives the fellows so much more ability to get this stuff done. They can pick up the phone. Remember when we met in class? Remember when we met? It's huge leverage that we can give them, and really helps them have access. That is sort of the beginning of making anything happen.
Josh, thanks so much for coming by.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, Ben.
Josh Makower, take one, marker.